Welcome to the Creating Conditions podcast, brought to you by the American Indian Student Achievement Team at the Montana Office of Public Instruction, where we strive to create the conditions necessary for American Indian students and all students to reach their educational and lifelong goals. Creating Conditions emphasizes the proactive effort of shaping an environment to facilitate a desired outcome. It involves recognizing that success often depends on more than just effort. It also depends on the surrounding circumstances. Our team believes all Montanans stand to benefit from the Indigenous knowledge that persists today. We are dedicated to serving all students through the creation and implementation of Indigenous whole child supports. No matter where you work or what populations of students you serve, we are so glad you are checking out our podcast because all students attend school as whole people and whole learners.
Shodaja, Bazil Vijay Galanish Hook, Biabsalagak, Hene Bella Ichik. It's a good day. My name is Watches the Buffalo Go By. My American name is Crystal Hickman, and I am a member of the American Indian Student Achievement Team at the Office of Public Instruction.
And I'm Michelle Henson. I also work as a Tribal Student Achievement Specialist at the Office of Public Instruction. And for this episode, we're actually going to rejoin an episode that we started previously. So in our previous episode, we welcomed two people from the Center for the Advancement of Positive Education, Tammy and Dylan. And we're going to pick up on a conversation we started with them. In our original recording of episode 7, there was so much great content that we felt like we couldn't fit it all into one episode. And so this is part 2 of episode 7, where we pick up on the conversation we started with them, where we learn more about the Center for the Advancement of Positive Education, or CAPE, and what that means. And again, we're so grateful to both Tammy Tolson-Nee and Dylan Wright for joining us for this conversation, and we'll jump right in. Tammy, at this point, do you want to share a little bit about the work that you're doing and Dylan too with CAPE, the Center for Advancement of Positive Education? Did I get that right?
Yeah, the Center for the Advancement of Positive Education. So we've got interns throughout the state of Montana that are working in different schools, and they are our CAPE interns. And one of them in particular, who works at a school that is primarily Indigenous, and she is also Indigenous. She has reported recently that there's been a much higher uptick of attendance at her school, and that the students that she's working with that typically are at this time of year are starting to kind of fall behind and starting to have behavioral issues they're not seeing that in these students this year. And a lot of that, I think, is coming from, or she thinks is coming from, the work that she's doing with these positive psychology interventions. And what we know is that, so Dr. Martin Seligman, who is kind of the person that is given credit for being the kind of the father of positive psychology. In 1998, he steered the ship at the American Counseling Association and said, we're going to be focusing on what's right with us instead of what's wrong with us. And he created this model that's called the PERMA model, which stands for, the P is for positive emotion, the E is for engagement, the R is for relationships, M is for meaning, and the A is for achievement. But what he says is the most important part, and so that framework is what it's a holistic view of what makes us flourish, right? Which gives us the best life that we can live. But what he says is the most important part of that PERMA model is the relationships, right? And so as you all are talking about this, I'm sitting here hearing relationships are important, right? Over and over. And it's just so interesting that in this idea in positive psychology, relationships are the most important part, right? And so this school counselor that we have is really building these rich relationships with these students. And she's noticing as she's doing that we're having a drop off in behavioral issues. We're having higher attendance rates than she's had in the past. And so it's just really amazing to see, how this is coming into play and how it matches up so well with what you all are talking about with attachment and relationships and attendance. So I'm sorry, I had to get that out right away because I was really excited about it as you're talking about this. But we can back up and talk a little bit more about what CAPE is. Tammy, do you want to start out or do you want me to talk about it?
Well, it was also reminding me earlier that although there was this intentional shift in psychology and counseling in the late 1990s towards away from looking at what's wrong with us or what's wrong with communities or what's wrong with cultures to what are the strengths and what can we grow, what can we intentionally grow based on what's already naturally there. It also, so much of that work was really rooted in, from the earliest sort of recordings or even verbal stories of what really is well-being, and back to that idea of well-being and what grows well-being, and thinking about that what's consistent across so many of the elders and philosophers or religious or spiritual leaders from really ancient times is that our well-being is sort of maximized when what we are naturally talented at, skilled at, our sort of natural virtues are in line or intersect with the needs of our families, our cultures, or our world. And so that just was reminding me of like how, although it's sort of modern, or positive psychology is a more modern concept, how it's really rooted in ways of thinking about well-being. And there's in Browning School, there was a group of people who came together recently. I'm not sure if you all have gotten to see it, to put a video together that was part of their Fire Keepers Alliance. And the question asked of everybody was, what gives you hope? And I love that idea to have all of these students talking about what gives them hope. And I think it was just really, it's so human to tap into that. And so how much of what gave them hope too was in connection with family and relationship, in culture, and being connected to that. That was also so. You talking, Dylan, also got me thinking more about the connections between attendance and just well-being from an ancient perspective.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and it's so interesting too. I think about, when we're talking about how the work of positive psychology, how it spans across different cultures. Tammy and I have had an opportunity to present for a group in Africa, and we have this intern that's working in a primarily indigenous community and doing the work of positive psychology there. And it seems like what works so great is that when these different cultures kind of take a look at the things that we're talking about and then adapt them to their own culture. Like, for instance, this one school counseling intern, she has taken sweetgrass braiding to work with her students to build kind of an opportunity for them to talk and to build those relationships, and at the same time working it in such a way that is really focused on their culture, which is so cool. I love it how people are recognizing the power of these interventions and adapting them to work for their specific needs,
So the basic work of our center is to take the ideas of positive psychology with those ancient roots and then to weave them into education across our state and across our country and across our world, so that we're turning this ship, which And it's interesting to hear those communities that are already naturally turned this way. But it's this huge sort of mental health ship as well, right? That's really been barreling towards what's wrong with us. And how do we start to slowly over time change that narrative to actually there's so many things right with us, and those need to be highlighted and celebrated, and that we can, and things we can actually do to grow those things and to grow our well-being. And like Dylan said, that so much of that is really rooted in connection and relationship and belonging, that even all the practices we talk about, like gratitude or kindness or savoring, that part of the power of those isn't that they're just what we do for ourselves, but that they're done in the context of other people and with other people, and they involve that story of other people. So that's sort of a summary, a little bit of a background. And I don't know, Dylan, if you want to say more about what we're doing.
Well, and the reason why we are, the reason why we are finding this to be such important work in the school systems is because, what the research shows and what the studies show is that, children learn better when they are having, when they feel better about things, when they feel better about themselves, when they have more positive affect, when they are feeling good about things that are happening in their life, and when they feel good about themselves, they're more creative. They're more able to digest some of the content that they're learning. They're more courageous, willing to put themselves out there, right, when they feel safe and when they feel connected. And so so it's not just for the students, though. The work that we're doing, we're also really heavily focused on the teachers, because the teachers really need these tools for their own well-being. And so we do a lot of work teaching the teachers this stuff, hoping that if they find something that they like, they may then bring it into their classroom to do it with their students, right? And so we have this class called Happiness for Educators, which has just been a huge hit. It's filled every semester, and it's an asynchronous class, so teachers take it at their own pace. That's 15 different modules, and they're all kind of recorded lectures. But I say lecture, but really they're kind of like just fun episodes that we do, where we try to have a really good time with them, because we're kind of trying to practice what we preach, right? We want it to be fun for them and for them to enjoy it, because we know if they're having fun learning it, then they're going to learn it better, right? And so they have these 15 modules that they go through, and then at the end, there's and then there's homework assignments along the way. And the homework assignments are things like writing a gratitude letter, taking time to savor out in nature, or a cup of coffee, or these different and being intentional about some of the stuff. And I'm lucky enough to get to do some of the grading for the class, and it's so wonderful to go through and read these homework assignments that these educators have participated in. It's just beautiful. It's uplifting, the things that they talk about. It just feels good. It just feels good. And I want to kind of also talk a little bit about the happiness part of it all. We used to be called the Montana Happiness Project, which is still an organization and an LLC that exists. But CAPE was kind of it was the precursor to CAPE, right? And so, and we used to we would use happiness as the hook to get people to look. You either heard the word happiness and you were all in and want to hear more about it, or you hear the word happiness and you're totally turned off by it, right? and so we would use the word happiness as kind of a hook to get people to look our way to kind of find out more about what we're doing. But really what we're talking about when we're talking about this stuff is we're not talking about this hedonic happiness that you get when, say, you eat a piece of candy, right? And you get this burst of like, woo, that felt good. Because we know there's this thing called hedonic adaptation, which is this idea where as humans, we adapt so well to things. That's great if we're in chronic pain, say, right? It's a good thing that we can adapt to that chronic pain and live our lives. Not such a good thing, though, when it comes to joy and it comes to happiness, right? Because you find something that makes you happy, and then next thing you know, you probably need more of it to make you happy. Like I like to use the example of, I'm coming in after a day of skiing and I'm freezing, and I come into the house and I go up to the fireplace to warm up, and I'm like, oh yes, this fire feels so good, and it feels great, right? For about 10 minutes. And then I'm like, man, I wish I had a hot tub, right? Because all of a sudden I've adapted to that nice feeling and I need something a little more, right? So that's that hedonic joy. And while that is a piece of the puzzle, the bigger part of the puzzle is something that we call eudaimonia, which Aristotle kind of coined is a well-lived, meaningful, and an intentional life, right? A purposeful life. And that's not always a happy life, right? Oftentimes we have purpose and drive, and we can be unhappy during those times, right? So, think about anything that you do that you have passion for. You're not going to be giddy and happy all the time while you're striving for it. But that purpose and that meaning, or that eudaimonia, that's kind of what we're after, is the long haul of a well-lived, well-being life.
Well, thank you so much. And I know we're probably going to start to wrap up here. But before we do that, I want to give Crystal an opportunity. Anything resonating with you right now that you want to share? I know we got lots of strategies and ideas from Tammy and Dylan. I can't thank you guys enough. But Crystal, anything you want to say before we start to close out this episode?
I have so many things I'd like to say, but I would like to just reiterate that that concept of teacher care and teacher self-care, because teachers are part of the relational world. They have relationships. They have, and when they're centered in those relationships, they do better. We all do better when we all do better. A lot of times in the trainings that I do, I remind people that we want to meet our children where they're at. We want to meet our students where they're at, but we can find them better if we know where we are. So doing that teacher self-reflection, doing that human self-reflection, and regulating before we ask our kids to regulate, because our kids don't have that yet. They're learning how to regulate from us. And so we can do what's called co-regulation. And I think that's the last thing I would want to say is, like, take care of ourselves. Take care of ourselves, because others depend on us.
Yeah, well said. Modeling that behavior too, right?
Absolutely.
I feel like I just want to reiterate that so much. I love that, Crystal, that we want to meet our kids where they're at. But that it's important that we also know where we're at, and that we have a sense of what's happening for us both, I think, so we model that, and so that's present in relationship, to be authentic as well, and so that we're actually able to co-regulate kids, because if we're not ourselves regulated, how can we possibly regulate kids? Which there's nothing like hearing someone yell at a kid to calm down, right? When they're not calm at all.
It's my favorite.
Yes, it turns out that doesn't work so well. So I really love that. And that's why I love that CAPE has started with this idea of how do we start this work with educators, right? And how are we growing their well-being also, so that they can come alongside and support kids in that growth.
Well, that's great. And I want to thank you both for your time and joining us today. And also just thank you for the work that you do. I just know that as you spread happiness, there's this ripple effect, and I know that we're all better for the work that you all are doing, even if we're just sort of, adjacent to it. But before we leave, what is the best way, if folks who are listening to this want to reach out to you, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Sure. They can either email me at dylan.wright, so DYLAN Wright, WRIGHT, at, how does it go? MS, or what is it?
MSO.umt.edu.
Yeah.
And you
Maybe
can
that address
also
will be
find,
in the, maybe that email address can be in the notes or something.
and you're welcome to put my email address in the notes. And also you can find us on social media if you look for PJW Cape, and you can find us on our website too, which even if you just Googled University of Montana and Cape, it will pop up, and then you can go there and you can find our contact information.
And the cool part about it is our social media has just started going. We've got 2 wonderful digital happiness coordinators that are running all of our social media. So people can come over and check us out on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and be one of the first followers.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And yes, I will get those emails in the description and get the links to the website. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the work that you do. And I'm just excited to see what the future holds for Cape. And maybe we can connect again and get an update as your work continues. So thank you to all of you for listening. And we will look forward to connecting with everyone again on a future episode. So thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Creating Conditions podcast from the American Indian Student Achievement Team at OPI. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, share, and leave a review. And keep joining us as we work to create the conditions every student needs to thrive.